Northwestern University conducted a study that was recently published, and it's a study on drug use and race. So they say the following. According to the study's findings, recently published in the American Journal of Public Health, abuse and dependence on hard drugs, opiates, amphetamines, etc., are less common among delinquent African-American youth than those who are non-Hispanic white. The study was conducted over the course of 12 years and interviewed 1,829 youths who were detained at Cook County Juvenile Temporary Detention Center in Chicago. For some drugs, the rate of white use was up to 30 times higher than that of blacks. And the researchers conclude here, quote, "We found that African Americans are less likely than other racial and ethnic groups to abuse hard drugs, yet African Americans are disproportionately incarcerated for drug crimes." So yet again, we have another piece of the puzzle here. This is just like the other studies that we've covered on the show, which found that when it comes to marijuana use, blacks and whites use about the same, but blacks are arrested 4 times more often. When it comes to drug sales, whites are much more likely to sell drugs, but much less likely to be arrested for selling drugs. And now when it comes to hard drugs, whites use more than blacks, and for some hard drugs, it's up to 30 times higher than that of blacks. And yet again, you have the incarceration rate leans more against African Americans. So what this shows you is selective enforcement. And what it shows you is you over-police certain communities and you under-police others. The idea that justice is blind, and what do you mean? We're just upholding rule of law and that's how it is. No. Some people get away with their shit, other people don't get away with their shit. And furthermore, and the broader question here, of course, is, why should any of this be illegal? Now, I get it. Are some drugs worse for you than other drugs and have worse societal implications? Of course. But the answer for that would be rehab. Now, I would legalize, regulate, and tax everything. But, you have to understand that 80% of all drug users are going to be moderate users and are going to be okay, and the other 20% should get help and shouldn't be locked up in a cage. But what this does is it allows law enforcement to police the undesirables. And in fact, we had a Nixon advisor who recently admitted that. We covered the story on the show. It was a gigantic story about how they said, no, you see, you don't get it. In Nixon's White House, the enemies of them were hippies and minority communities. They were not voting for us. So you have to control those communities. Now, you can't make it illegal to be a hippie or to be a black person. So what you do is you just police the lifestyle. So if you have an old white man who likes to drink whiskey when he comes home from work, totally legal. You're doing a drug, but totally legal. But if it's a black guy who likes to smoke marijuana, illegal, and now we're going to lock you up for it. So you criminalize the lifestyle, and then you make it so that you stigmatize it. Oh, that means you're a bad person. It means you're not a hard worker. It means, you're not productive and all this stuff. And you plant the seed in people's minds that equals a bad person, as Jeff Sessions, a senator, said the other day. Yeah, you're not a good person if you smoke weed. You implant that mindset, and then what follows is what we have now, mass incarceration. More people in jail in the U.S. than in Stalin's gulags at their height. So this is a scourge, and this is a huge problem, and yes, it's biased against African Americans. And yes, we should roll this back and we should get the laws right so that we foster an environment that actually creates equal opportunity for everybody in the country. And we don't, basically have an economy where it's a 100-yard dash, white people take off, they're 65 yards in front already, and then everybody turns around and says, okay, black people, now you can start running. And then when they don't get to the finish line before the white people, they go, why you're not a hard worker? Why don't you buck up and pull yourself up by your bootstraps some more? But you had a 65-yard head start. So what do you want them to do? So we have to make it so it's a fair race. I'm not in favor of equality of outcome. I'm in favor of equality of opportunity, and all of us should be. And we need to chip away at stuff like this, or else there will never be equal opportunity.